Yeah, yeah. Ball so hard, you better believe me, it's scary. It's basketball at the bar with Calvin and Barry. So put a tip in the jar, cause these dudes can really fill it up. Whether it's buckets you need or just a beer in a cup. We're here for fresh conversations and some delicious libations. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. My boys got you covered like you being guarded by Peyton. From the glove to the claw and everyone else in between. Calvin and Barry got everything that you need. For sure. So sit back, relax, because we're starting the show. It's basketball at the bar. Grab your drinks and let's go. Yeah. Grab a drink and let's go. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Calvin and Barry. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification. Let's get it.
What up, ballers? Welcome to Basketball at the Bar. Join us live every weekday for the best NBA podcast here on YouTube, where the takes are hot and the drinks are cold. There's no dress code, and you can take us wherever you go. So pull up a stool, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe. This is Basketball at the Bar. Grab your drinks, and let's go, Calvin. I effed it up again. It's Aloha Friday, and I am not wearing Aloha shirt.
I'm not either.
Neither are you, but
it's okay.
We're in Hawaii, so it's always Aloha Friday here.
Very true.
At least I have a Waikiki Brewing Company shirt on. That's a little Hawaii, I guess.
More Hawaii than Goose Island.
Which is an island as well. But welcome back, everyone. It is Friday. We're excited to wrap up this week of basketball action. We had our very first finals game this week, a very surprising one, which we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about some more Lakers drama, potentially in the head coaching search. They officially announced their head coach this week, and it looks like that was not their preferred candidate, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the sixth man of the year, Tyler Herro. What's next for him? We're going to jump into some free agent targets for a lot of teams this NBA offseason, and then we're going to talk about the weekend, what to expect from Sunday's Game 2, and we'll end the show, as always, with Q&A. I want to say what up to everyone that's watching right now. Progressive G, Key Kings, Asha, Steven, appreciate you guys. Mike, if you're there, thank you guys for all joining us today. Calvin, it's Friday. It's a good Friday, and you're actually off work today, so this is like your Sunday, right?
Sunday, yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Well,
let's weekend's always over too quick.
I know, it is, right? And then the weekend starts. For me, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's jump here right into today's show. You and I, there's a lot of different ways to watch basketball games, right? And, sometimes depending on the game, especially if it's like your team playing, you want your like quiet atmosphere at home where you can hear everything that's happening on the TV. You can analyze every single play and see exactly what's going on. We didn't take that approach yesterday, right?
No, we did not.
We went to a brewery, a bar, and we watched the game with a group of friends. There was a lot of talking. There was a lot of other people involved. It was a very fun atmosphere, fun environment. But I'm not going to lie, Calvin, I did not see 100% of the game.
It can be a little distracting at times.
But I had a great time. It was a great game to watch. And let's jump into it. So I want to hear from you. Favorite part of the game?
Man, that's tough. I wasn't expecting you to ask me that question. Favorite part of the game? Well, look, I'll say when Steph Curry comes out in the first quarter and scores 21 points.
Yep.
I wasn't thinking necessarily that the Warriors were going to blow the Celtics out, but I thought the Celtics had zero chance to win.
Oh yeah.
I thought Curry was going for 50. And when he gets in one of those modes where he's like just white hot and can't miss, it's pretty fun to watch. So I guess I'll take that first quarter.
Great for the Warriors. Usually it is. I was going to pick that moment as well. Just seeing him start out so hot in the first quarter was exciting. But this Boston team really impressed me. I have Golden State winning the series. That might change. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But Boston really surprised me. They took every single punch from Golden State. They were still there. They still remained in the game. And then they even, were able to make a couple runs in this game. They end up winning 120-108 over the Golden State Warriors. They steal home court advantage. This is our home now, says Boston. Al Horford leads all Boston scorers with 26 points, and Steph Curry leads all Warriors with 34 points. The Warriors leaned really heavily on the veterans in this game. 38 minutes for Draymond Green, only 4 points for him, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. He does foul out in this game. 35 minutes for Andrew Wiggins, 20 points for him. 25 minutes for Kevon Looney, 4 points, 9 rebounds. Yes, Mike, I said Kevon Looney this time. Steph Curry, 38 minutes for him, 34 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Klay Thompson, 39 minutes, leading all Warriors, 15 points for him. And then off the bench, I was surprised. We saw Jordan Poole play 25 minutes, didn't shoot that well, 9 points in the game, 1 of 5 from three-point range. But Andre Iguodala, 12 minutes for him, a guy that we weren't even sure was going to play this game. 24 minutes for Otto Porter Jr., a guy that we weren't sure that was going to play this game. So those two combined had more minutes than all the bench players combined in this game, which is pretty incredible. 1 minute for Bjelica, 1 minute for Kuminga, Toscano Anderson 1 minute, Lee 1 minute, Moody 1 minute. They leaned really heavy on the veterans. Boston did as well, but I think veteran in terms of Boston is a much different phrase than veteran is according to Golden State, because they have a lot of champions on their team. Mm-hmm. This Boston team is not so lucky, and that didn't seem to hold them back. 33 minutes for Al Horford in this game, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 42 huge minutes for Jason Tatum. Wasn't his normal offensive self, only 3 of 17 from the field, 12 points, but he added 13 assists. And then Jaylen Brown is the guy for me that really stepped up. I heard a quote this morning on ESPN. They said, when Batman's not always feeling the best, Robin is there to pick up the slack. That's exactly what he did in this game. 24 points for him, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and only 3 guys that scored off the bench. Derek White, 32 minutes, 21 points. Huge game for him. Also heard he became a father recently. Congratulations to him. 3 points for Daniel Tice and 8 points for Peyton Pritchard. A lot of information there, Calvin.
A lot of information. Yes, it's only one game, so, it's hard. You don't want to overreact too much to anything that happened last night, but there were some really, really critical parts of this game that I think you can learn something from for the rest of the series. Number one, this series is about how well each team can defend the three. 21 made threes for Boston. We've seen them have, I can think of at least 3 previous games in the postseason where they hit 20 or more threes. The Warriors hit 19. It's the first time in NBA Finals history that both teams made at least 19 threes in a game. These teams love to put it up from outside. So, and we saw the adjustments made in game in terms of guarding the three, especially for Boston. In that first quarter, the Boston Celtics defense was an absolute shell of itself. Zero communication.
Yeah.
They let Steph Curry walk into 3 wide open threes in the first 5 minutes of the game, which may be the biggest cardinal sin you can commit in basketball today. They made a much, much more asserted effort to guard the three-point line in the second half, and they obviously got it up at themselves and started knocking down threes like crazy. Al Horford was huge, as well as Derek White, who had maybe the game of his life in the NBA in terms of importance, being a finals game and all that stuff. So is Derek White going to continue to do that for a whole series? I don't know. But one thing I do know for Boston that they seemed to figure out offensively in the second half was they knew Jason Tatum was struggling. He was having a rough day shooting. The Warriors were also really committing to doubling him and making sure they got the ball out of his hands. Instead of trying to force shots up in that fourth quarter, he said, I'm going to be a facilitator, and he got it to Jaylen Brown. And I think that is where the Celtics have a huge advantage. Klay Thompson is not the defender that he once was after the injuries. Guarding Jaylen Brown for a full 48 minutes or however long Klay is going to play is a really, really difficult task, and Jaylen Brown took it to him in the fourth quarter. That's a matchup to watch going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Jaylen Brown, incredible performance from him. And I'm going to weigh in on his odds to win the Finals MVP award after this. But for me, this game, Boston out-warriored the Warriors. As weird as that sounds, that's what they did in this game. They shot better from the field. They shot better from three-point range. They shot better from the free throw line, which is amazing when you think that this Warriors team has 3 guys that shoot over 90% from the free throw line. They passed the ball more. They had, 9 more assists in this game.
More points in the paint.
They turned the ball over less. They had more points in the paint. They literally out-warriored the Warriors in this game, and they bullied them, like you mentioned. The defense was not there in the first half, but in the second half, they really clamped down, especially at the three-point line. We saw Steph Curry get blocked during a three-point attempt. How often does that happen?
Not
right?
very often.
And then we saw kind of the repercussions of that later on in that game where guys were hesitant to shoot the ball, especially Curry from three-point range. There was multiple times where in previous games, Curry gets the ball, he's shooting it. He seemed a little hesitant after that block. And it happened to more than just him, a few guys on this Warriors team. The Celtics really clamped down. They made it difficult on Golden State, and they took their lunch money last night.
They did. If Jordan Poole isn't going to give them, what the Warriors are used to getting from him off the bench offensively, Klay Thompson had an okay game, 15 points, 3 of 7 from 3. Those aren't bad numbers, but they need more from him, especially if the Celtics did exactly what you want to do to the Warriors, what every team tries to do to the Warriors in the second half. Limit Curry and Thompson from 3, force Draymond to look for his shot, look for his offense. 0 of 4 from 3 last night for Draymond Green. The Warriors are not going to be they're not going to be very successful if they continue to force Draymond into a jump shooter. Yeah,
that's exactly what they need to do. I mean, just looking at the stats here in the box score, it does not look good for Golden State at all. I mean, if you were to tell me, and it's funny, we're talking about Curry being limited in the second half of this game. The dude shot 12 of 25, 7 of 14 from three-point range and had 34 points, and we're saying he was limited.
Well, 21 of those 34 in the first quarter.
Yeah, so. But, if you were to tell me, Steph Curry had 34 points in this game and Jason Tatum only had 12 points.
Yeah.
I would have told you 10 times out of 10 the Warriors won that game, and they didn't.
Goes back to what I said before the series started. When they're at full strength, I think Boston is the best team. Yeah. That's how you win.
It's only one game. We may be overreacting here, but I'm starting to feel that, Calvin. I really am. Like, Boston, this team has veterans on it, like Al Horford, that have played, what do we say, 141 career postseason games
without a finals appearance.
Yeah, they even played in the finals. Yeah. A guy like that, no matter if he's been in the finals or not, that is an experienced veteran that's going to help you right your ship. He is a guy that everyone can look at and say, okay, Al, what do we do here? And he's gonna help guide them. And he had one of the biggest games, if not the biggest game of his career, 9 of 12, 26 points.
The Warriors were definitely daring him to shoot early.
Yeah.
And, that's okay if he's gonna throw up a bunch of bricks, but that he made them pay. And that after that, then the Warriors defense was really stretched. Their rotations were a step late. Mm-hmm. The extra pass was being made. That's when you have Marcus Smart knocking down a couple, Derek White knocking down a couple open threes. A few of them were contested threes as well. Derek White hit one with Steph Curry like right in his face that I'm still amazed that he made that shot. But they got way too many open looks in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of back on your point about Draymond Green, it seemed like the teams basically did the same thing, and Golden State tried to force Al Horford to shoot. Boston tried to force Draymond Green to shoot. Al Horford is a much better shooter.
He's going to win that battle every time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah, he will. And
the Warriors definitely have to figure out what they're going to do on defense.
And that's kind of the deepness that you were talking about with this team is the fact that you have Robert Williams inside to be the Draymond Green on defense, anchor everything. And then you have Al Horford on the offensive end who can pass the ball and shoot the ball and rebound the ball well. Mm-hmm. This team is just much more, I guess, deep in terms of like position-wise, but also in terms of like schemes and like what they can do. Their players just seem more versatile to me, which is crazy to think that I'm saying that about the Golden State Warriors and that there's a team that has more versatile players than them. But I think it's true.
Yeah, I would say more versatile both offensively and defensively. Yeah. Offensively, I think Golden State's got more versatile players. But But give Boston a lot of credit, just like Progressive G is saying here. I mean, these guys stepped up. They played huge. That fourth quarter was, I think it was a bit of an anomaly, honestly. I don't expect to see another fourth quarter quite like that. Both these teams are really, really good fourth quarter teams. And I think Golden State will make some adjustments, and they'll be better in game 2. But they still need to be worried, like you were saying earlier. Steph has such a great game, but they don't really get a great game from anybody else. Wiggins had a pretty good second half, but they need Klay to be better. They need Jordan Poole to be better, and they've got to figure out what they're going to do on defense because they got a perfect game 1 from the Warriors standpoint from Jason Tatum, 3 of 17 from the floor. Problem was everybody else went off.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out how to stop these other guys as well.
Did you hear Draymond Green's quote after the game? Where he's looking at the box score and he's like, you're not supposed to name names, but he named names. And he's like, oh, Derek White, 5 of 8 from three-point range. Al Horford, 6 of 8 from three-point range. Marcus Smart, 4 for 7 from three-point range. Peyton Pritchard, 2 of 3 from three-point range. You know, basically alluded to the fact that, like, I can live with that because these guys aren't that great and they're not going to do this consistently.
Well, be careful what you wish for because that's exactly what Milwaukee said, or they didn't say that openly, but that's what they wanted, right? They said, we're going to bet that these guys, these role players, aren't going to make enough threes to beat us. Miami the same way.
Yeah.
Didn't end well for either one of those teams. So
yeah, and I kind of see where he's going with it. Like, he has a point. These are role players, right, that beat him. But
that's what their role is.
Yeah, and to go against that, you're like, okay, Draymond, well, I'll give you a number here, 3 of 17. That's Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
You lost to 3 for 17 from Jason Tatum. If none of those role players do anything and Jason Tatum plays his normal self, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's going to be a long series for both of these teams. We'll see. We'll make some predictions on Game 2 towards the end of the show here. But anything else that just really stood out for you from this game?
I think you can break this series down into a few really key components right now. Number one is which team is going to defend the 3 better for the course of the full series, however many games it goes. Number 2, what's the focus defensively for the Warriors moving on here? Because I really think Jaylen Brown is going to be super, super aggressive for the rest of this series. I think the Celtics realize they have a big advantage there in that individual matchup. And as of right now, they're leaving Klay Thompson isolated on him. They're not sending help. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much longer that can continue for, especially if Jaylen Brown gets off to a hot start in Game 2. And then after that, it's how do you rotate and cover enough ground to limit some of these wide open threes for the Warriors? Because Al Horford is a really good three-point shooter.
Yeah.
And that guy he attempted 8 threes. It felt like at least 6 of them were wide open. Mm-hmm. They can't let that happen again.
Yeah, and a guy like that, when you tell him, okay, Al, you're 3 wins away from an NBA championship, that's got to light a fire underneath him, if there's not one lit already. Yeah. But, like, it's so close. You can almost taste it. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to continue to play well. And he's looking healthy. So
he is.
Shout out to Al Horford.
And another thing I'm worried about if I'm Golden State is Jordan Poole. He played 25 minutes in this game, only 9 points, 1 of 5 from 3. This is what I was worried about with him coming into the series. I didn't like his matchup defensively. So I don't know if he's not going to give you 20 points.
Yeah.
How many minutes can you really rely on him for to continue on every game in this series? It's going to be very critical for them to figure out how they can get him going offensively.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, let's move on from the game. And let's just talk. Well, I still want to talk about this finals, but more of like in the contrast of the series or context of the series instead of just one game. So I want to know from you, Calvin, how worried, I was calling them the Golden State Warriors earlier, how worried should the Golden State Warriors be after losing Game 1 at home and losing home court advantage to the Boston Celtics?
Well, look, again, this is where you have to say you can't hit the panic meter yet. It's just one game. Steph came out blazing hot. Love to see that if you're the Warriors, obviously. Now we just got to figure out how can we get some of these other guys going. They're still the Warriors. They still have the 124-1 finals game experience lead over Boston. So it is definitely not over yet for them, and that's not how they're going to be feeling. I think they're a smart team. They really, really had a big advantage, like they've had in most of these playoff series, on the offensive glass. Kevon Looney was, again, big for them. They had 12 offensive rebounds in this game, and almost every single one of those led to a three from either Curry or Wiggins or whoever it was. So I still keep pounding the offensive glass if I'm the Warriors. They just have to figure out what they're going to do defensively. They did a good job taking Jason Tatum away, but Tatum made a great adjustment in that second half to find everybody else, and they knocked down open shots. So now you have to figure out how you're going to spread the floor defensively and make sure you take away some of these threes. But, again, it's one game. Draymond really didn't play very well. If he comes back, turns the ball over a little less, maybe he makes one mid-range shot instead of jacking up 4 threes, or looks to attack the basket a little bit more. The Warriors also blew a ton of layups, especially in that first half. So I'm not panicking at all. Let's just get back out there in game 2 and see if we can do better defensively.
Yeah, it's definitely too early to panic, and especially for a team like Golden State that's got all this championship DNA in the team. You don't want to panic because a lot of times that makes things worse, but maybe the sense of urgency is there or increased, where it's like, okay, before it was we just have to win all our home games. Now it's we got to win all our home games and we got to win a game in Boston at this point. Don't hit the panic button yet, but yeah, if I'm the Warriors, I think they should be
concerned.
Worried.
Yes, I'm a little concerned and a little worried for the reasons that I already brought up. But at the same time, I'm feeling relieved despite how game 1 went, because I'm the Warriors and I've still got Steph and Clay and all these guys.
Yeah, speaking of Steph, I saw an interesting stat today. Steph Curry has lost 8 out of his last 9 finals games without Kevin Durant.
It's amazing that he's even played 9 finals games without Kevin Durant.
Well, I mean, I would say
since he left.
3 of those were against
when he was
Cleveland,
hurt.
right? When they were up 3-1, and Cleveland came back and won 3 in a row before KD. So
well, how does that count if it's before Kevin Durant even got there?
Well, it just says without KD. So
Okay.
I'm assuming it's part of that, right? Because they didn't lose many finals games.
Seems like that skews the stat a little bit if you take into account
Well,
games before Durant even played with the Warriors.
And after.
I mean, what difference does it make before? He wasn't a part of the team.
I think they're just trying to say here, Curry hasn't won a lot of finals games without Kevin Durant. So,
right, and it's skewing the stat because you're adding games before Kevin Durant even played for the franchise.
And after.
No,
but I'm saying three
I'll
from
it.
3-1 against Cleveland. Then he lost last night, so that would be 4. So there's 4 other times in there, and I would say all 4 of them, no, 3 of them had to be in the finals against Toronto, right? Because one of those games KD did play in.
Yeah.
So only 3 of those could have come without that. So then there's another game in there somewhere. But what do you take as far as that goes?
I think it's people trying to create something that maybe isn't there.
Okay.
Kevin Durant's a great player.
Yeah.
Does it help to have Kevin Durant on your team? Hell yeah, it does. But
it does.
Steph won a championship without him. There's a lot of other factors that go into why you lose an NBA Finals game besides not having Kevin Durant on your team. So, is it a coincidence or is it something that people will talk about? Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's I don't buy into really anything on that.
Okay.
Every series, every finals is different for different reasons, not because you don't have a certain player on your team.
The crazy thing is that this Boston team beat Kevin Durant already, right?
They did.
Like, if you were to look at, like, one of the hardest roads to the finals, I mean, just looking at this team with KD and Kyrie Irving, there's a lot of other drama and stuff there, but they end up sweeping the Nets in the first round. Then they go on and beat Giannis in 7 games with Milwaukee. Then they go on and beat Miami in 7 games with all the talent on that team. And then now they're facing the Golden State Warriors.
Yes,
if they win this
run.
championship, this is much deserved. Not that some are more deserving than others.
People will try to take a little bit away from them too, though. They'll say, "Oh, the Nets weren't the Nets." They'll say the Middleton didn't play for Milwaukee, and they'll say Miami was hurt. Those are all true statements, but it's the same thing with the Warriors. If Kawhi wasn't hurt, the Warriors wouldn't have won that year.
Yep.
The list goes on and on. So.
What was it yesterday? We talked about another quote from Draymond Green saying, "No one ever beat us whole."
Yeah.
That could be changing here.
It's one game. It's one game. I still think Boston's going to win the series, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
All right. Speaking of getting ahead of ourselves, let's talk about Finals MVP. Is there a new favorite? I think Curry proved it last night. If the Warriors win the series, he's winning Finals MVP. That's his award. But we saw Boston kind of take a different face last night. Jaylen Brown or Al Horford.
Those two guys have to be the front runners at this point, I would say.
Okay. So if Boston wins this series, who's winning Finals MVP in your mind?
I mean, there's so much that could happen in at least 3 more games, right?
Yeah.
But I guess who do I think is in the best position right now? I'll say Jaylen Brown, because again, I think that they figured something out with that matchup.
Yeah.
If Klay Thompson's going to guard him one-on-one for the whole series, which the Warriors want that to happen, right? Because that allows you to double Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really, really hard for them if they had to double both those guys, but I don't know what Golden State's going to have to do, either having somebody else guard Tatum full-time or somebody else guard Brown full-time or helping Klay a little bit more. I think Jaylen Brown could have an inside track to a bunch of big games here, which makes him maybe the leading candidate right now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think if Boston wins this series, Golden State is basically going to be choosing the Finals MVP, right? Because they're going to either say, we're going to let Tatum beat us, and then he's going to be the MVP, or they're going to say, we can't let Tatum get his, and then it's going to be a guy like Jaylen Brown or even potentially an Al Horford, which that would be amazing to see Al Horford win. It would be similar to the Iguodala situation for the first ring for the Warriors. But Finals MVP, it's not set in stone yet that it will be Jason Tatum or Steph Curry, so pretty interesting stuff there. Progressive G says, Steph won a ring without KD, true, but that was against a very handicapped Cleveland Cavaliers team. Yeah, I mean,
there's always
it's all part of the thing, right? Don't sleep on Horford winning Finals MVP. I would love to see that. That would be incredible.
I think we both agreed that he's got a great chance as of right now.
That would be awesome. All right, moving on here. Next in the news, the Lakers hired their coach, Darvin Ham, but we're still talking about their coaching search. And apparently we had it all wrong because we thought that the Lakers preferred Darvin Ham and LeBron preferred Doc Rivers. I saw an article today saying the Lakers preferred Juwan Howard. He already has a coaching job. He does have connections with LeBron James, won 2 titles with him in Miami. What are your thoughts on this? Does this even matter?
Well, it matters to me because I'm very happy that Juwan Howard stayed at Michigan. I mean, it's new. It became news because it's the Lakers, but this probably happens to anywhere from 5 to 6, 7 NBA franchises every year where they want a particular coach, but he either decides to stay where he's at in college or stay with his NBA team or they just lose out on that particular guy and they have to look for someone else. The reason we're talking about it, like I said, is it's the Lakers.
Yep.
So is it a big deal? It will be a big deal if Darvin Ham turns out to not work for them as coach. But if he ends up being a really good coach and the Lakers make a run at a title next year, then no, we're not talking about this at all anymore.
Yeah, I think Juwan Howard will become a head coach in the NBA, which you probably don't want to hear. But I think he will. I think he's got all the qualifications. He was an assistant with
no
Miami,
reason for him not
all
to be.
that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when and what's the right spot for him. I know he would love to be head coach of the Miami Heat, but I don't think that position's opening up anytime soon.
Probably not.
But interesting for him. I like Juwan Howard. You ran into him in a hotel in Miami when we were staying there. How much longer you think he'll, I guess, kind of wait before he takes the jump to become an NBA head coach?
I don't know. I mean, that's a really tough question to answer. I think a lot of people expected at some point Coach K to want to make that jump, right? And he never did. So it really just depends on how much success you're having at your current program. Michigan has been doing really, really well as of late, even though they had kind of a down year last year. But, it's all about timing, the right job becoming available, the right opportunity, and how much he really wants to do that.
Yeah, I expect him to move up when there's another big opening, whether it's the Knicks or the Nets or one of these big teams that just has an opening where it's like, who's going to be the right guy? We hired someone. They didn't get us to where we want to go. We have all this talent. We need a coach that'll give us over the top. Juwan Howard, I expect to be in the NBA in the next 3 years, maybe, I would say. Stretch it out to 3 years, maybe 2 years, but
we'll see. Hopefully not.
I expect to see him in the NBA very soon.
As long as Michigan wins 3 national championships in that time, I'm okay with that.
And Coach K never played in the NBA and was never an assistant in the NBA.
That's true, but he did coach the U.S. Olympic team for a long time. A lot of NBA players on that team.
Very true. All right, next up, let's talk a little bit about Tyler Herro. We heard some quotes this week from him stating that he expects to be a starter next year on the Miami Heat. We saw the Miami Heat fall short this year in the NBA playoffs after having an incredible run. We looked at their salary cap situation, I think it was last week, and we kind of touched on stuff like that. They have a ton of money committed next season to guys like Jimmy Butler, $37 million, Bam Adebayo, $30 million, Kyle Lowry, $28 million, Duncan Robinson, $16.9 million, PJ Tucker's got a $7 million option. This is the last year, next year, will be the last year of Tyler Herro's rookie contract. Mm-hmm. The Miami Heat have a team option that they can exercise for $5.7 million. Then he becomes a restricted free agent after that if they offer the qualifying offer and they haven't come to terms on a contract extension. Basically, this is the last year of a discount on Tyler Herro, right? Do the Miami Heat look to move him? Or does he move into the starting lineup with Jimmy, with Kyle, with Bam?
I think he should be a starter. I know why they wanted him to come off the bench last year, and it definitely worked for them to their advantage in terms of the regular season. They almost made the NBA Finals, so you can really say that it was a good move by Eric Spoelstra to have him coming off the bench. If making him a starter is going to be one of the key determining factors in whether or not I get to keep Tyler Herro, I'm going to start him.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose Tyler Herro if I can afford to keep him on the team. So, yeah, I mean, the short answer is I would start him next year.
Does Tyler Herro, is he getting ahead of himself here? He just won Sixth Man of the Year. He's still on his rookie deal, and he's playing with an incredible franchise like the Miami Heat. Could he be getting a little ahead of himself here, saying that I deserve to be a starter, I want to be a starter next season?
No,
because
I don't think so.
The reason I say that is, Sixth Man of the Year is an interesting award, right? Because it rewards the person for thinking team first and allowing themselves to come off the bench, and they don't need to be a starter, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it tells that person, you're the best bench player in the league. Maybe you want to think about being a starter, right? And so we've seen guys in the past like Lou Williams and stuff like that that have been kind of a career sixth man on a team. If you win the Sixth Man of the Year award, that means that you're the best at what you do, right? And being the sixth man. So it's kind of an interesting situation where it's like, do you give up doing what you did best to try and take on a bigger role in becoming a starter and maybe grow into like what you fully think that you are? Or do you stay and do what you're good at in being a sixth man? And as long as they're willing to re-sign you and pay you what you deserve, what does it matter if you're a starter or not?
Well, it matters It matters to Tyler. Like that, I think that's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not you argue that's a good or a bad thing, it matters to him. So if Miami wants to keep him around, then that's going to be a big deal. And then I would also say the 6-man position, if you will even call it a position or whatever, the role of 6-man has changed a lot in the NBA over the years. It used to be just like, who's your most reliable guy off the bench? It doesn't matter how many points a game this guy scores, whatever. Just who is that first guy that I know I can count on to, A, go get me a bucket or go get a stop or help us in some area.
Or your 6th best player.
Over the years, this has now evolved into, it's one of your maybe 3 or 4 best players on your entire team that you choose to put in this role, and they still play starters minutes and play late in fourth quarters in close games, stuff like that. You consider them a starter, but you use them in a different way, maybe. Tyler is definitely that type of player, in my opinion. He was their leading scorer all year long. So I think it's really important for Miami. If they're not going to pay him, then they need to figure out a way to maximize value for him and get some trade assets back in return.
Progressive G says, how much better is Tyler Herro than Buddy Hield?
He's better, I'll tell you that. I mean,
better ball handler, better defender.
Tyler Herro's not really a great defender, but Buddy Hield is pretty terrible.
Yeah. And Tyler Herro, he's more than just a three-point shooter to me, which is what Buddy Hield is.
Tyler Herro is a way more dynamic scorer than Buddy Hield is. Tyler Herro can consistently create his own shot in all 3 phases of the court, right close to the basket, mid-range, and from 3. Buddy Hield is definitely not that player. Even though he tries to be, a lot of times, he is not that player.
So, you mentioned, what the Heat really can get out of him, right? Whether it's salvaging value if he wants to move on to another team or re-signing him and bringing him in as a starter. Whatever you need to do, you need to either get value from him if you're moving on, or he needs to bring value into your team, right? So we saw them, kind of fizzle out here in the playoffs after having the best record in the East. A starting lineup of like Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and maybe PJ Tucker, is that a championship team? Or do the Heat look at themselves and say, maybe we're better off trying to trade Tyler Herro for a guy like a Donovan Mitchell, a Bradley Beal, one of these other guys that have proven more in the NBA. They cost more, but do they really cost more if Tyler Herro is going to a max contract in a year from now?
Yeah, I mean, I think either one of those options would be, you would have a championship contending team, right? Like, adding Tyler Herro to that starting lineup, we're talking about a team that was just a game, one shot basically away from the NBA Finals, and that was with Herro missing. What was it, 3 games in that series? So, well, basically 4, because he tried to play at the end there and couldn't really go and had to sit the second half. So this team is definitely good enough to win with him, definitely. On the other hand, if you're able to flip him for somebody like Donovan Mitchell, that obviously is a good move. Like, a lot of people would like that move. I'd be a little cautious, I guess, bringing in somebody like Donovan Mitchell or Bradley Beal onto that team, because at least with Tyler Herro right now, and again, this might have to change if he doesn't want to come off the bench anymore, but you're adding guys who are even a little more ball dominant in Beal and Donovan Mitchell to that team already. Now, I think guys like Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry would be able to adjust pretty easily to that. But then again, in a playoff series, I don't know. And a lot of people are saying that was the issue with Miami, is that Jimmy Butler had to do everything, and that's why they couldn't get over the hump. Injuries definitely play a part in that, so I think there's a little truth to that, but maybe not the whole truth. It's a tough call, I think. Tough call.
Yeah, and does moving Tyler Herro to the starting lineup, as much as Tyler might like that, does that hurt the Miami Heat team in terms of like production off the bench? If he's leading the team in scoring, what does that mean for shots for guys like Jimmy Butler? and Kyle Lowry if they're all playing, relatively the same amount of minutes. A lot of questions there to think about. Do you expect Tyler Herro to be on this team next year?
My gut right now says yes.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sold on that either.
Yeah, I have a gut feeling that he will remain as well. I think he's bought into the Miami culture. I think Miami loves developing players. Yeah. And so I think that barring a huge setback or a huge Tyler Herro explosion of I want to go somewhere else, I expect him to continue to buy in, remain with this team, at least for one more year. The contract extension is where it gets tricky, right? Because if he becomes a restricted free agent and another team offers him a max deal and the Miami Heat are like, does he really deserve a max, or does this handicap us in the future with all these other big deals? I think that's when it gets kind of tricky. But I think he'll remain on the team next year.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next up, let's talk about free agents before we jump here into the weekend recap. Looking at this free agent class, you would say it's a lot smaller than normal or some of these big ones where it's like, where's Curry going? Where's LeBron going? Where's KD going? But there's actually a lot of good players available this offseason. Just to name a few here, Zach Lavine is an unrestricted free agent for the Chicago Bulls, and he has stated that he is going to live life to the fullest this summer and interview with as many potential teams as possible. You have guys like Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Bradley Beal that all have a player option, so they could opt out. And I believe that deadline is June 21st, I believe, that they can opt out and become unrestricted free agents. And then you have guys like DeAndre Ayton, Jalen Brunson, Miles Bridges that are all restricted free agents where their team basically has control of their rights, but they could end up going out and signing a big deal with somewhere else and forcing their team to either match the deal, say no, or try and work out a sign and trade to get some value back. So out of these 7 guys I just named here, Calvin, Lavine, Ayton, Brunson, Irving, Bridges, Harden, Beal, I want to hear from you. Which one of these guys do you think really has the opportunity to maybe go to a new team and be a franchise changer like we saw Chris Paul did in Phoenix?
Well, I think the answer is pretty easy here. It's Zach Lavine. I mean, number one, he's the only unrestricted free agent in the whole list, so he has the best odds or ability or chance of changing teams in the first place, right? And then second of all, when he's healthy, he's arguably the best player on this list as well. So I think it's a pretty easy decision to make that it's Zach Lavine who could really turn somebody around, like a Portland or at least, get them such a good head start on filling out the rest of the roster and building a competitive team for next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I still see Zach Lavine returning to Chicago. I think they're building something there, and I think ultimately he does. We'll see what happens with Irving, Harden, Beal. Like I mentioned, they all have player options, so their future is basically in their hands. And I expect all 3 of those guys to remain with their teams. The guys that I'm really looking at on this list are guys like Ayton, Brunson, and Bridges. They're all restricted free agents. And all those teams might have some issues bringing them back. We haven't really heard if Ayton is going to return with Phoenix. Apparently he refused to play in the last game of the season for them. They have not committed to him long term. Then we've talked about Dallas and their salary cap issues and whether Jalen Brunson fits on that team. And then Miles Bridges, has played incredibly well, hasn't had too much success team-wise with Charlotte. They're looking to add some more guys. They did bring in a guy like Gordon Hayward and stuff like that, so his position's a little bit more cloudy there. Out of these 3 unrestricted free agents, Bridges, Brunson, Ayton, do you have a favorite here? Do you have a guy you think will end up leaving his team, and who's the prize?
Wow, that's tough. I think if you were to poll most NBA teams, they would probably say Ayton is the prize. And I love DeAndre Ayton. However, Miles Bridges is maybe a more versatile player. Like you could DeAndre Ayton has to play a specific way, right? Miles Bridges is a perimeter player, has good size, has defensive potential to guard multiple positions. If he continues to improve, which he really took a huge, huge leap for me this year, there's no way in hell I ever expected that guy to be that good of a three-point shooter. After watching him at Michigan State a lot, he was all, attack, lob, get to the rim, nothing from outside. Now he is a really, really solid three-point shooter in this league. So I think Miles Bridges is my favorite player out of all three of these guys in terms of potential to what he brings to your team. But I love DeAndre Ayton as well.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at this list here, I think Ayton, as far as the restricted free agents goes, Ayton is a guy that you build a team around. Maybe he's your second, third best player. He is a cornerstone. I don't feel the same way about Miles Bridges or Jalen Brunson. I just don't. I feel like they're more
That's fair.
Versatile, fit into whatever scheme happens. Yes, there are some that are going to help them and some that are going to hurt them, but they're not like the main building block of your franchise. And
yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to how much are you going to have to spend
yes.
to get these guys, right?
Yep.
I think we both agree if you're able to get any one of them on a reasonable contract, you'd love to add this guy to your team.
Definitely. And I like Jalen Brunson a lot, but I'm still, out of all these guys, he's like got the most question marks around him for me. He reminds me of J.J. Barea. I don't know why. It's not the game, or it's not his game specifically, but it's the undersized, it's being with Dallas, it's the way that he moves and drives to the basket and just goes through contact. He really reminds me of a guy like J.J. Barea, who played incredible for the Mavericks, won a championship with them, moved on to another team, didn't really do much, found his way back to Dallas, played incredibly well again, kind of like a Lance Stevenson in Indiana. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for me, it's hands down Ayton is the guy on this list that it's like he is the huge prize in free agency, that if you're one of these teams that's struggling, maybe even Miles Bridges' team in Charlotte, where it's like you're one, maybe two pieces away of having a solid foundation of guys to build around and make it to the playoffs every year. DeAndre Ayton, for me, is going to have a huge impact on a team this offseason. And I also think he could have a huge impact on Phoenix if they lose him.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
They don't really have another guy that's ready to kind of come in and take that position. Like, who else do they have? JaVale McGee?
Yeah, he's the backup right now. And Bismack Biyombo.
J.J. Barea or Isaiah Thomas is a great comparison.
Yeah, he's not anywhere near as quick as Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas is tough.
They're both lefties, so I see why they look similar, being smaller left-handed guards. But
all three of these guys are small. They like to get to the basket. They take contact. I see that. I definitely see that. Would you like the Kings to go after Gobert or Ayton? That's an easy one for me.
Ayton all day.
100%. Yeah, Gobert. If I'm taking on Gobert, you better be sending me $100 million also, because the dude is massively overpaid. And Ayton is just so much more well-rounded of a player. So much more.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Don't get me wrong. Gobert would help Sacramento in a lot of ways. I mean, rebounding and defense and rim protection has been something that they've lacked for a long, long time. But the problem with Gobert is, yes, you shore up maybe that one area of your team, but now you're so financially handicapped that you can't make the rest of the team better around him. And that's what we saw was the problem with Utah.
Yep.
Like they have good players around him and Donovan Mitchell, but they're not the right it's not the right fit altogether in terms of perimeter defense. They rely very heavily on the three-point shot. Mike Conley definitely took a step back in this year's postseason.
Yep.
And so that they weren't able to really find the right pieces and spend the right money to construct a team that could get out of the first round. And that's where you'd be if you were Sacramento, I feel like, if you get him.
And just for me, Gobert is as incredible of a player he is much more exploitable than a guy like DeAndre Ayton. And we saw that in this year's playoffs, where you can basically take Gobert out of the entire game. And that's, things you don't really see in the regular season, but once the postseason comes and you play the same team like 7 times, you're really able to kind of like zero in on those advantages you have. He's very exploitable. Ayton is not, in my opinion.
Not nearly as much so. And with Ayton, you can give him the ball and he can go get his own shot and score, which is a huge difference between the two of them.
All right, Calvin, let's talk about Sunday's game. You know, to everyone that's watching, thank you. We appreciate you guys for joining us this week. You guys are all off today. There's no basketball. I'm going to give you the day off tomorrow, too. No basketball. But Sunday, you guys better be ready because we got Game 2. It's in Golden State, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time if you're here on the west coast, like Calvin and I, the best coast. Boston, they're probably going to spend the next few days in Golden State. There's no reason to fly home. So
it's a long flight home just to come right back in a couple days.
We'll see if we see any pictures emerge of Jason Tatum having a beer or something in San Francisco before a game or not. But Game 2, it's going to be an interesting one, Calvin, and I believe it's a must-win for Golden State. What are your thoughts on Game 2?
Just echoing kind of what I said earlier. I mean, Game 1, both teams shot ridiculously well from 3. I think Game 1 is usually sort of a feel-it-out type game. I expect it to be a little more physical in Game 2. Both teams maybe not shooting quite as well as they did in Game 1. But for me, it comes down to Jaylen Brown. How aggressive is he going to be? Is Klay Thompson going to be able to hold him down by himself, or are they going to have to start sending help? And then what does that do for Jason Tatum? Does that free him up a little bit, get him going? Because that spells doom for the Warriors, I think. You know, if they can hold one of those two guys down in every game, they've got a chance, like we saw for 3 quarters last night, to win. But if both of them get loose and both of them start getting hot, that's when you have to be really, really concerned if you're Golden State.
Yep, yeah. Golden State is favored by 4 in this game, which didn't help them in Game 1. They were favored by 3.5.
Yeah, they were up 15 at one point in the third quarter.
Yeah.
So
the thing that I'm looking at for in this game, which you mentioned it earlier, and I thought you were spot on, is the matchup between Al Horford and Draymond Green. For me, Game 2 is going to be all about Al Horford. I see Golden State saying, okay, Al, you got us in Game 1. Do it again.
Yeah.
We don't think you can do it again. And if Al Horford can do the same thing, he doesn't need to have 26 points on Sunday. But if he can make a couple shots, if he can be very productive on Tuesday, I think this changes the entire series for Boston. And it's going to force Golden State to say, okay, he's done it to us twice now. We need to make some adjustments. And I think that's really going to open things up for Jason Tatum. I really do. So for me, the key to Game 2, even if Boston loses this game, the key to Game 2 is they need Al Horford to be extremely productive.
Yeah. It's hard to disagree with that. I mean, Horford, Smart, and any player that Boston gets going off their bench, that's like playing with house money for them, right? You know, that was essentially the difference here in Game 1. Klay Thompson only 15 points. Jordan Poole only 9 points. Derek White has 21 off the bench. Smart has 18, and Horford has 26. So I would say, you know, it works both ways here. Boston is probably thinking the same thing about Golden State. They held him to 108 points. That's with Otto Porter Jr. going 4 of 5 from 3. You know, he's probably not going to do that again. Maybe he hits a couple, but 4 of 5 from 3 for not having played in a while, that was pretty impressive. I think he started 4 of 4. And then, you know, the question is, does Steph Curry stay hot as well? So
yeah. Over-under on this game is 215.5. Are you going over or under?
I'm going to take the under in this game.
Interesting.
I think Golden State will make some adjustments defensively, and I don't expect Boston to put up 120 again. So I think this game stays somewhere around the, you know, like 105 106 to 103 range or something like that.
Okay.
Pretty low scoring.
Also want to remind you all that are watching, we are a partner with Bet Us that you can see down below. There is a link in the description to sign up with Bet Us. If you deposit at least $50, they will match your deposit up to 125%. No financial advice on this channel, but Calvin and I love to talk about prop bets, over, unders, stuff like that. So make sure you guys sign up for Bet Us and bet with us all postseason. All right, for me, I want to look at it a little bit from Golden State's perspective because I've talked a lot about Boston on this show, and they really impressed me. I thought Golden State was going to win game one. They didn't. But I want to just talk a little bit here about what Golden State needs to do to win game two, what they need to do to get back in this series. Because like I said before, if they lose game two, the series is pretty much over in my eyes. Hopefully Boston doesn't feel that way because they need to keep going. If I'm Golden State, what I need to do is I need to basically just play my game, and I need to be Golden State. It kind of reminds me of some old Greg Popovich quotes where he talks about, there's a lot of times he doesn't even pay attention to the other team. He doesn't even scheme for the other team. There was an interview with one of his assistant coaches. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they're like, okay, you guys are prepping for, I think it was like Dallas or somebody tomorrow night. What do you guys have on Dallas? And he's like, nothing. We didn't print anything out on Dallas. All we did was focus on ourselves. And Pop's like, if you guys can shoot this well, if you can pass the ball this well, if you can limit your turnovers, you're going to win the game. I don't give a shit what the other team does. If you can hit these three metrics, we're going to win the game. And that's exactly what Golden State needs to do here in game two, is they need to say, we don't care about Boston. I don't care what Jason Tatum does. I don't care what Al Horford does. I don't care what Marcus Smart does. We need to score. We're one of the best scoring teams of all time. We need Jordan Poole to score and shoot his game. We need Steph Curry to do his thing. We need Game 6 Klay Thompson to hit threes. And then we need Draymond Green playing, cornerback on defense and playing quarterback on offense. If Golden State can stick to their game plan, not even worry about Boston and just do the things that they do and do them extremely well, they will win game two.
Yeah, I agree with that. It goes back to what we said at the very beginning. It's one game. Golden State they had this game won through three quarters, and then they put up their worst individual quarter of the entire playoffs this year. 40-16 is just crazy. And again, it was just wide open three after wide open three for Boston. And Boston was able to force a few turnovers in that fourth quarter, which helped ignite their run, get them out in transition a little bit. So if Golden State takes better care of the ball, like you said, if they can get a better game, they have to figure out a way to get Jordan Poole going offensively. 100%. Have to figure a way out. And that's going to be a really tough one because he is exactly where Boston is going to attack defensively. But that's something that the Warriors have been dealing with all postseason. That's not a new thing for them. So, yeah, get Jordan Poole going. Figure out a way that you don't allow Al Horford to have shooting practice out there. And, yeah, they definitely got a chance to win.
Yeah, what's up, Key Kings? Good to see you. All right, guys, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we got answers. Also, awesome week of basketball. Hopefully you guys are excited for the weekend, and Calvin and I will be back on Monday. Calvin, who are you taking on Sunday for game two?
Well, I was going to take Boston in this game because I thought Golden State would win game one.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Golden State again because I think I want this series to go long. I want it to be a 7-game series. I don't know if I would take them by 4, but I'll take them to win a close game, 3 or 2 maybe.
Okay. Yeah, my picks, other than me picking the Heat to go to Game 7, my picks have been horrible. I bet on Dallas, they lose. I bet against Dallas, they win. Same with Golden State, same with Phoenix, all that ridiculous stuff. What up, Asha? Good to see you here. Who do I want to win the game? Because I should bet against them is what I'm saying here. But I'm agree with you. I say Golden State wins game 2.
Yeah.
Also had them to win game 1. But
me too.
I want to see a longer series like
that's
you.
That's really funny. I'm picking Boston to win the series, and I picked Golden State to win both in the first 2 games.
Yeah, funny. All right, I'm happy for Boston. They were counted out early in the season, and it's great to see them battle through it to make it to the finals. Yeah, and I mean, I saw an article today that was talking about Brad Stevens and the tremendous impact that he's had on this squad. Although he's not the coach anymore, he's absolutely killed it from the front office. Like, in terms of bringing in Derek White, like, that was an absolute steal.
Great move. He was so good for them both offensively and defensively.
And bringing in their coach, Udoka, who was in San Antonio with Pop and with Derek White. So they're able to reunite those guys in Boston. They get rid of Dennis Schroeder. They get rid of, like, Tristan Thompson and some of these other guys that just have not helped them. Great moves by Brad Stevens. And that just kind of goes back to what Calvin and I have been talking about the past couple weeks to many of you Kings fans, is that, like, the players only do so much. Like, yes, you want to have the best players and all this, but it's really like an organizational thing, right? Like, it starts with ownership. Then you have your front office staff and everyone else that helps them. Yeah, maybe there's one face that you see, but there's 100 people behind that face helping facilitate all the things that they do. Then you have your coaching staff. Then you have your players. So great organization like Boston. They're really doing it right. So congratulations and shout out to them. Asha says, what do you think about Jaylen Brown as the first pro athlete to sign with Donda Sports? Asha, I know you were working a few days ago when Calvin and I touched on this subject, but Calvin.
Good for Jaylen, good for Kanye. Some Yeezys on the court, as you're saying here. Yeah, we would love to see that. He's technically not the first pro athlete to sign, though. Aaron Donald, I believe, was the first guy to sign.
First pro NBA player.
First pro NBA player, definitely. It's a big move for Donda Sports, like, in terms of apparel and all that stuff. I mean, football athletes are big, but basketball athletes, in terms of a sports agency, those are the, like, crown jewels, right?
Yeah, because you see their face.
You see their face. They can put the shoes on the court a lot easier.
Yeah.
Everyone will buy basketball shoes. Not everyone will buy football cleats.
Nobody's buying football cleats to wear around.
So it's a big deal for Kanye and for Donda.
Yeah. Yeah, and Calvin said he'd pick up a pair if they didn't look like the Crocs versions.
Yeah, I will not wear those.
You know what I'm interested to see is we saw Tyrese Halliburton this year. He bought a Bored Ape. He put his Bored Ape on his shoes, and those became the most expensive NBA shoes of all time. If you own an NFT like that gives you the IP or intellectual property rights, I'm looking at a guy like Kanye, and I'm like, why hasn't Kanye bought one of these? Maybe he owns one already, but maybe Kanye puts one on his shoes, and then he's able to sell millions of copies to people. Kanye, hit me up. All right, next one. Key Kings. Are the Kings bringing back the gold jerseys? We got some good news for you.
I did see a report that stated they were going to bring those jerseys back next year.
Yes. I'm excited. I love the gold jerseys.
Them. I'm not the biggest fan, but...
Okay, so I love the gold in the jerseys, but I don't like the jerseys that, like, the shoulder is this big.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the old gold jerseys. Yep. So if they bring back the gold jerseys and they have, like, normal size up top and it fits nice, like, I'm ecstatic. I think it's going to look dope.
As long as they don't take Sacktown on them, I'll be cool.
What do you think would be a good color combinations? So we all know the Kings color scheme is like black, silver, purple. Mm-hmm. You could throw white in there, and then they have like that blue, baby blue and red throwback Royals.
Yeah.
What works best with the gold? Can you go gold and purple? Or
well, that seems to be the first choice, right? But
yeah,
kind of looks a little bit too well. It's not really the same colors as the Lakers, but that's what the Lakers are, right? It's supposed to be purple and gold.
Yeah. So do you do black? Maybe all black would be dope.
Black
and gold. Like
that
you have
cool. Yeah.
The Kings logo
they've
blacked
done something
out
like that in the past, right? Haven't they had like gold letters on a black jersey before, or am I making that up?
Not
maybe
all
it was
black.
A T-shirt.
Not all black. Yeah, the T-shirt, and they have the blacked out Kings logo for the hats and stuff. I think you and I saw some of those in the team store. The gold jerseys are hilarious.
They are very unique. You are right about that.
Yeah, they are. But I think it could be really cool. Progressive G says, what happened to Under Armour? They were on fire a few years ago, but it seems like they completely fell off.
I mean, if you got Steph Curry on your team, I wouldn't say you've completely fallen off. They can probably just run with him for a while.
Outside of this year, what has Steph Curry done in the past couple seasons?
He's been hurt, and they haven't made the playoffs.
Could be correlated with Under Armour. I don't know.
I don't know.
Less time on the big screen in the finals and the playoffs for them, I guess. But then
when
again,
it comes to basketball, yes, but you got to remember, Under Armour makes like all the gloves for football. They make a lot of cleats for football. I think Under Armour's probably doing okay at this point.
What was the material used on the gold jerseys?
Gold dust.
That's a tough one.
I don't know. It does feel a little very different from the other jerseys.
Hold on one second.
This is where it helps to have a Kings fan in the room at all times.
All right, I'm back. Gold jerseys, like these ones, right? I like them. Yeah, it's just too big up top here. Let's see here. We're made out of nylon. It says 100% nylon. These are actually the old Reebok jerseys when Reebok used to make them. Made in Honduras. 100% nylon. And they did purple and white. Mm-hmm. I like it. I think it would be really awesome for like purple and black. And just do everything black, like solid black and gold. I think would be great.
Yeah, I think that would look pretty cool.
All right. I want to see the Kings wear the greatest show on the court, early 2000 style jerseys.
Yeah. Best. Those are their best jerseys ever.
Didn't they try to bring those back with the DeMarcus Cousins years where they had kind of like the similar design? But yeah, the SK, the old like crown logo was my favorite. Yeah. I would love if they brought that back. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up the show here. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please share this video and this channel with all your favorite basketball fans. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful weekend watching basketball. Calvin and I will be back on Monday, same time, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. So make sure you guys join in. We will also be dropping some content on Royal Rebounds next week as well. And we will continue working on team needs for a lot of these off-season franchises that didn't make the playoffs or just didn't play that well, and even ones that did play well but have some salary cap questions, free agency questions, stuff like that. And we're getting ready for the NBA draft, so make sure you guys stay tuned for all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Calvin, anything last you want to say?
Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and don't forget to tip your bartender.